So a few weeks back, I found myself doing some online window shopping on Massdrop, when lo and behold, it is revealed to me that AKG is selling their M220 headset in collaboration with Massdrop for only like $50. What? Now, according to their own marketing material, this is the headset that they suggest you should be starting off with as the basis for comparison for any other enthusiast audiophile grade headgear that you'll be listening to in the future. So I figured, why not? It's 50 bucks. Let me go ahead and give them a shot. But I needed a decent point of comparison for them. And that's a problem for me, because I don't have many other headsets. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to be comparing them to my Aorus H5 headset that up until recently I have been using as my daily driver headset. So let's see if $50 audiophile can outclass $75 gaming. First thing I want to touch on is the plastics. The AKG plastics for the ear cups. It feels about what you would expect a $50 headset to feel like. It's very light plastic here, but the advantage to having this really lightweight, streamlined design is that it winds up being about 45 grams lighter than the Aorus H5 headset that I was using, which is really nice for those extended listening or gaming sessions. Just means I'm not going to get as tired of wearing them. Now, another thing that I wanted to touch on quickly with the plastics here is that if you look in the comments section for this headset, there's numerous complaints about people ordering specifically the red version of these and noticing that there's a pretty broad range of reds that seem to appear on the plastic. While I can't speak to that in my particular instance, because I did order the blue one, I gotta say, at least the blue plastic looks basically exactly like what I thought it was gonna look like. The cable for this headset, like the Aorus headset, is huge. This thing is nearly 10 feet long. What's nice about it is A, it's not braided, 2, it's detachable. And it's a pretty firm attachment point that it has as well. So if anything ever does happen with the cable, or you get a wild hair across your butt and you decide you want to braid it yourself, you have the option to do that more readily here. Now, while this headset does come natively as a 3.5mm jack, it does also include a 6.5mm jack as an adapter for it, so you can hook it into a 6.5mm input on an amp DAC or something like that. Now, because these are headphones and not a headset, you will unfortunately be lacking a microphone, which is something that the Aorus H5 is obviously going to win on in this comparison. I mean, spending the money and having the microphone there immediately is admittedly a really nice convenience factor, and it's the main allure, I think, personally, for the gaming headset market. Oh, and RGBs on your headset if you're into that sort of thing. Now, while I will say the headband material feels a bit better on the Aorus headset, being a sort of leatherette fabric material, the band for the AKG headset, while plastic, is broader, so it sits more confidently on my head when I'm wearing it. So again, this is one of those, it's one of those little things that you don't really pay a whole lot of attention to until you actually switch from one headset to the other and experience the difference in comfort levels. The other thing I will comment on while I have these on my head is the cups on these are noticeably larger, and in measuring them, they're approximately 5mm wider across than the Aorus H5 cups. So even though the Aorus H5 headset has ample amounts of super fat padding, the fact that the openings aren't quite as large as they are in this headset means, unfortunately, I do wind up experiencing ear fatigue after, granted, an extended session, around 3 to 4 hours or so. But on the weekends, when I do get the chance to play my games, listen to my music, I don't want to be burdened by these earphones pinching my ears in. Now, as far as the drivers go for these, this is another interesting point of comparison between the AKG M220s and the Aorus H5 headset. The AKG 220s only carry a 30mm driver on them, whereas the Aorus H5 headset is carrying a 50mm driver. However, in listening experience for both music and games, bigger is not always better. And I'll go ahead and show the specs for both of these drivers as they're listed on the box. And while I do that, I also want to draw attention to the fact that both of these are advertising specs in a slightly different way. Now, as someone that thrives on quantitative data when analyzing a product, something like headphones is really difficult for me to test, but I can at least standardize the battery of testing that I do between the two different headsets, so I can give you guys some relatable anecdotal experiences. Now, each of the songs were chosen for very specific reasons, either the noise levels or the distortion effects that are used or the types of instrumentation that are used. But I tried to span a couple of different genres just so I could touch base on a little bit of everything. The first song that I tested between these two was Billie Eilish, You Should See Me in a Crown. Now, the M220s, crystal clear as expected. There was really accurate reproduction of the grittiness and those distorted electronic sounds that get used throughout this track. Her voice was crystal clear. Now, the bass was a little lacking in the track, unfortunately, but you should sort of expect that with a semi-open back set of headphones like the AKG M220s. Now, that being said, even though the bass was lacking here, it still sounded tight and accurate. Now, switching over to the Aorus H5 headset was a very different experience with this track. The bass was tight and punchy, hitting basically like a Mack truck. The problem, however, is the rest of the sound floor sounded kind of like the song was placed otherwise in a room with bare walls and was just kind of hollow and tinny. Moving on, the next song was Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. Now, this is the remastered edition that I listened to, and this and all the other songs that I used for testing will be linked down in the video description. Listening to that song on the M220s here was like listening to it for the very first time all over again. I would actually go so far as to say that is the most beautiful that song has ever sounded to me. Clean literally doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of how awesome it made this song sound. But then I transitioned over to the Aorus H5, and there were a lot of things wrong here. First of all, the mids were very lacking on the H5 headset, and the bass was way too emphasized with these drivers. It was so much so that all of the rest of the instrumentation and the vocals kind of dropped out of the song entirely, and it lost its impact as a result. Admittedly, it was extremely tough to listen to that song all the way through after having used the M220s. The last track I used as a comparison point was Marilyn Manson's The Beautiful People. I chose this track because it's one of those industrial rock songs that has a whole lot of percussion sound going on to it, and there's a lot of voice distortion going on as well. And I gotta tell you, songs like that are a huge strength of the AKG M220s. The bass had the perfect amount of punch and tightness to it. All of the instrumentation came through super clean and clear, and you could actually sort of make out what was being sung in the track. It's actually kind of impressive how accurate all of the sounds were from the M220s, but that's sort of to be expected, right? They're studio quality headphones. And of course, as the story goes, switching over to the Aorus H5s left us with just this disgusting, muddy, bass-driven mess that just washes out all of the rest of the nuances of the track, and frankly, it just became, at that point, really unenjoyable to listen to. Now, fear not, because if you're thinking that I'm going to entirely diss the Aorus H5s here, you would be mistaken. For gaming, these are still really serviceable headphones, and the fact that they include the built-in microphone on them, which is detachable if you wind up not needing it, does still make these an appealing option for someone that's predominantly gaming at their computer or listening to content on YouTube or something, and they don't necessarily need that clean, accurate sound reproduction. However, having experienced the M220s, the comfort that this headset offers with the gimbal-mounted head cups, these awesome 30mm drivers, even games like Doom, where there's a lot of really gritty electric metal sounds and a lot of really punchy bass, these headphones sounded awesome with that game. So you're still really not missing out on anything. And if anything, I would have to argue that having the more accurate and clean sound reproduction helps you out with directional positioning, especially in something like a first-person shooter or any sort of tactical game where you have to be paying attention to where things are coming from around you. All right, so conclusions. The Aorus H5 is a gaming headset. It does basically what you would expect it to do. But as someone who's never had that audiophile experience before, and going over even to an entry-level headset like these AKG M220s, I gotta say, I'm kind of genuinely glad I made this purchase. These sound so crystal clear, even in spite of lacking a little bit of bass. The build quality is excellent with these, and I feel very confident in maneuvering these basically whatever way I want. They're extremely comfortable to wear, And regardless of whether you're listening to songs or gaming, these sound incredible. Slap an Antlion mod mic on this thing and you have an amazing gaming headset too. Alright, that's gonna wrap it up for this one, guys. Toss a thumbs up if you liked what you saw. Get subscribed for more content coming at you sooner rather than later. Also, don't forget to follow me on all my social media feeds. I'm really active on Instagram and Twitter. And as always, I'll catch you guys next time. Just take it easy.